Hello everyone, welcome to General Lando 327 plays Final Fantasy XIII Episode 1. For the purpose of disclosure, this is one of three video game series that I am producing simultaneously, and they are going to be my first three series for YouTube. So, pardon any technical errors as I get going. I can only hope that I'll get better at this as I go along. But at the same time, part of the fun of my streams is going to be the fact that I am not a professional gamer. I just play for fun, and I finally just decided after watching a few other YouTubers who do what I'm thinking of doing. And I finally decided that I would give it a shot myself, since I'm going to be playing video games anyway. Just kind of bring some light to games that I think are either underrated or underknown or underappreciated, and some great classic games. One of the series I'm working on is going to be Kingdom Hearts. So, that being said, Final Fantasy XIII might be a head scratcher for some as to why I would choose this to be my first Final Fantasy series. The truth is, I very much enjoy Final Fantasy XIII. I grew up ever since high school when I was introduced to the series on Final Fantasy games. It got me into the role-playing genre in the first place, and that was back when FF7 was still relatively new. I think the FF8 had been out, but 7 was still the big game. So I know a lot of people who would have similar stories to that would typically be opposed to some of the newer games. Most people who are old-time Final Fantasy, ATB Gauge, fans, like myself, don't like some of the newer changes that have been made, and Final Fantasy XIII is one of those games that they made some pretty daring changes that I think are defendable, and so I really enjoy this game. It's the first game in the series that I don't hate at least one of the main characters, and not just like they annoy me. I just flat out can't stand them. If they were removed from the game, other than, the fact that it would mess up the story, I would be perfectly fine with that. This game, I think, being a writer myself, I appreciate good character development. I think this game might be the best in the series to date, in the realm of all of the major characters have their own development throughout the game. So that's one of the biggest reasons I love this game. Some people don't like the fact that it's the first Final Fantasy without a world map. I don't have any problem with that. Yeah, it's linear, but the truth is, the story of old-time Final Fantasy games were always linear. The fact that they had world maps doesn't make it any less linear as to where you needed to go and the exact method you had to take to get there. The fact that there were side quests earlier is just a taste preference. It doesn't make it any less a Final Fantasy. The story and the characters are what make it a Final Fantasy, and I think this game has it in spades. So without further ado, let's get started on this so you don't have to listen to me rant forever. One downside to this game, and actually really anything after this game, I do understand the complaints that you are kind of playing a game on rails, that is kind of a movie.
The 13 days after we awoke were the beginning of the end.
But at the same time, if you think about it, that's kind of because of the era that we live in video games. If we lived in an era where everybody played old-time RPGs, then I think you would see a lot less of the linearity in this game. Some people are going to argue with me and say now that Final Fantasy XV is out, 15 proves what they could have done with this game. I would argue that with the story of this game, it made more sense to do it this way. Even what they did in Final Fantasy XIII 2.
Be quiet.
I think they tried to fix some of the complaints that people had on this game. And to a certain point, that actually made it worse. I still think 13.2 is a great game, but I don't think it had the oomph that this game did as a
You all right?
as a story. And I'm going to stop talking for a while so that we can just enjoy this wonderful intro cutscene.
So far, so good. They all want to fight.
Good for them. Give me that. What the...
Like, I love the scale of this. Like, this is, like, massive. Even in, like, Final Fantasy XII, which had a gorgeous world, it didn't have this scale to individual areas for the most part. And that's only possible through the use of the cinematics that are in this game. Yes, it does lend to you're playing interactive movie kind of feel, but I don't mind that. As long as it's not too overdone, and that's a taste thing. If you think this was too overdone, okay, I can respect your opinion. But I think it was necessary, and I think it was perfect for this story. On the other hand, it makes it a little bit difficult to stream in bite-sized portions. So, bear with me on that. My plan on this series is to release a minimum of an hour a week, along with my other two series that I'm working on at the same time. So I'm working also on a Kingdom Hearts series and a game in the Tales series. Probably going to be doing Tales of Graces, because that's the first Tales game that I played and I fell in love with the series. So now we're thrown right into the face of a boss battle. Cool. I'm not going to do most of the tutorials because I am very familiar with this game, to the point that I have actually written my own guide for this game because I didn't find any that I liked well enough. So I have written a complete guide for the entire game. Anybody who's interested in it, feel free to message me, and I will be happy to send you the file. I don't have it posted anywhere online because, to be honest, I was waiting until I finished the entire series. I think one thing that this series lacks is the fact that there are no... because people didn't like it as well, some of the major guide writers that I'm aware of online didn't cover it as thoroughly as I think they could have. So I created my own. I'm in the process of doing the one for 13.2. The one that's gonna obviously be the biggest challenge for me is 13.3 since, or Lightning Returns, however you wanna say it. Since it's as close to open world as the series gets.
This thing won't give up.
Which honestly, I can take or leave. That the Lightning Returns is the only game in this trilogy that I really am not at all fond of. The more I think about it, the more I appreciate it for the fact that it ties up character stories, but I don't think it was necessary either. So anyway, little known fact about this fight, you can actually just attack all out in this fight and not have to worry about healing. He does constantly target Lightning for the most part, and she gets pretty low in HP, but the fight is specifically designed so that if you auto battle every turn, you will kill it before you actually die. And so far, I have not had that fail. In the, 6 or 7 times that I've played through this. Should say 6 or 7 times that I've played through this opening section. I've done the post-game stuff a lot more than that, but... Well, that was it. That's the opening boss battle. And again, the scale of this, like, he falls into a hole that you can, like, you're not even sure that's the bottom of.
Oh, goodness.
The scale is so epic, and honestly, in this entire trilogy. But particularly in this game, where you have so many different areas that are all very detailed and thorough.
To protect civilians, soldier?
That
you are sanctum, aren't you?
I don't think anything matches up to it yet.
What are you doing trying to
in
stop
the entire
the purge?
Final Fantasy,
Why don't you tell me
Final,
that?
I was a
Final Fantasy franchise. Say that one 10 times fast.
Hey, where do you think you're going?
I did mention that I have written a guide for this. That brings up an interesting point. I am not a professional gamer. I play for fun. If this game had a hard mode, I probably wouldn't play it because I don't care that much. My sense of satisfaction from completing something that's harder unnecessarily than it needs to be, I get very little. I would rather just play more and oops, I didn't actually mean to tell it to change the controls. Yes, I want standard controls. Alright. I would prefer to just play more and keep going and see new things that blow my mind. I have never played and probably will never play any of the Dark Souls series for that reason. I did play about 10 minutes of Dragon Souls before I decided that that was just not worth my time. Do I want to overwrite that save? That was my practice file for the first few chapters. I'm just going to go ahead and override it. I know this game well enough. I can get that far almost with my eyes closed. Not literally, as that would be, but that would be kind of funny to see. Maybe someday I'll try that challenge. Play Final Fantasy XIII with your eyes closed. But back to the guide topic. The fact that I am not a somebody who wants to bash my head against the wall trying to solve everything, I do use guides. In fact, it used to be that I had a strict rule that I would get as far in the game as I could without using a guide. For example, Final Fantasy X, I got to the battle with Seymour on Mount God Gazette before I finally got to the point where I could not beat that boss. My mind could not wrap around a way to beat him. Partially because I was underleveled and partially because I hadn't built the strategies through the rest of the game that were advanced enough to figure out a solution. And because that was like my third Final Fantasy? Second Final Fantasy? Second. That was my second Final Fantasy that I actually owned. I bought a PlayStation 2 for the Final Fantasy series. The only one that I owned before that was Final Fantasy VII for PC, which never worked. The disc scratched at the first time you have to win the Chocobo race in that one place, Gold Saucer, and so I never got further than that. Obviously, you know, one of the reasons I bought a PS2 was so that I could go back and buy those games. So now I've gone back. If you haven't finished Final Fantasy VII, then that's just kind of sad. So anyway, I do use guides. In fact, during my recordings, I will have guides open in front of me because that's the way I choose to do things. I don't think it's going to be effective enough to bother the videos. If it does, then I'll just have to edit a little. Or practice more and then get better before I actually do the video. In this case, like I say, I wrote the guide. I know what it says. So those are our, if you're not familiar with this game, those are the treasure chests of this game. They're little spheres instead of actual chests. So that wasn't a unique change. I kind of liked that. Highlighted the difference between this world and other Final Fantasy worlds.
Not wanting to get purged, I get. But taking on trained soldiers?
Better to die than get sent to Pulse. It's hell for Brimstone.
Yeah, well, hell's not sounding too bad. Because this place ain't exactly paradise.
Domesticated peacekeepers. Nothing to worry about.
Well, maybe not for a soldier girl, but I'm trying to say, hey!
Some people don't like the fact that this game is kind of a mash X to win type of thing. I could see that. I don't necessarily disagree with that complaint. I just missed a treasure sphere, but I can come back to it. I don't have any problem with that complaint. But again, I think that's a playstyle thing. I think they made a deliberate choice in this game because they were changing the system so greatly from the things that we were used to. Even in 12, where we had the non-instant battles, this was still a pretty large change. And I don't think it's, and for the most part, when you get into the advanced fights, you're not going to end up using auto battle all the time.
No need to be pushing now.
So, hang on just a second. I actually was not paying attention to what I was doing here. It doesn't matter. We gotta move on past this anyway. Wait, nope, that's later. That cutscene is a little later. Alright, so I do want to go up here, get the treasure sphere. That's the one that I was hearing. So, story-wise, I'm not going to spoil anything, because, like I said, I think this is a game that's been underrated and underappreciated. So I don't want to make it sound... I don't want to spoil things for the people who either refuse to play it because it wasn't what they were looking for, or for people who just heard that it was, not a good Final Fantasy game and never bothered. So like I said, that's one of the biggest reasons I chose this game first. That, and it's one of the games that honestly I return to this game. It's kind of my go-to, I need a break from other things game. And typically I'll just jump into the, post-game stuff and play some of those, crazy battles again over because, really, I know the story. I don't need to watch it again. But at the same time, every once in a while I like to go back and play through the entire story just because it's, like I say, I think it's one of the best written stories from a character standpoint that the series has ever produced. I think Final Fantasy VII has a more nuanced story, for sure. but I think this storyline suits its purpose. If you're only considering Final Fantasy XIII, the fact that they made sequels, they didn't need to. But I understand that they actually did plan it that way. So I don't have any big problem with that. Then I probably should have been paying attention to what I was doing. I forgot how much junk there is in this before I actually get to anything useful. Did that. Did that. No, we're beyond that. Save point.
Preemptive strike.
Rebels! So much for the element of surprise.
Then we get a tutorial on item usage. Woohoo! Okay, skip that, because I don't have to use items. Plus, I don't understand the purpose of saying that we need an item tutorial against both enemies that we've already fought and enemies that we have absolutely no problem against. But I think they wanted to get it out of the way so that when we get things that are more difficult, they're actually talking about the more advanced stuff by then. So, okay, I can understand that. Alright, we're going beyond this. Ooh, nice explosion. Well, guess we're not going that way.
Do we turn back?
There's no time.
Then what do you suggest we do?
Quiet.
Oh, lightning. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. By the time you get later on in the game, lightning's opinion of her teammates changes drastically. And of course, you know, she's the main girl of the trilogy, so, you know, I know that's not saying much. Of course, the main character is going to have some changes in viewpoint. But
Looks that way.
But I think they do a great job of setting her up as a I don't care about anybody except my goal here in the beginning of the game. Saz is still a little bit of a mystery at this point. He's just kind of tagging along and we don't know why. Also, we don't really know how they were connected before they got on the train. We will. Fear not, we will get those answers. Just not right away. So, one thing to talk about with this, the press X to win thing. I think that gets a little bit of a bad rap unnecessarily, because you're actually better off not mashing X in this game. I occasionally do it on fights like this, just because there's no loss to it. But that fight in particular is a great opportunity to mention, like, the fact that at this point, Lightning has an area of attack ability, Blitz, that basically does a low-powered attack, that sweeping blow that she does there. Let me save this before I go too much farther. That she does there. But the problem is, if you queue up the attack too early, it'll set it up, and then when your enemies are moving, before you actually get enough of your bar filled to do the attack, then what'll happen is you'll end up swinging and hit maybe the actual target you were aiming for. But the reason that they auto attacked with a blitz was because at the time when we queue it up, there were more around them. So you're almost better off. Well, you are. For most advanced strategies, you're better off, even if you are using auto battle, you're better off waiting until either your entire bar is full, your ATB gauge is full and ready to use everything you queue up, or some of the advanced strategies later on are going to involve queuing up partial ATB bars from the auto battle system and then just attacking early so that it doesn't use the entire ATB gauge. So it is press X to win, but it's not at the same time. It's press X with correct strategy. And honestly, isn't that the case of all of the games before this? The fact that this has an auto battle is no different from, well, it's a little different, but very little different from the options in like 7, 8, 9 to just remember what you did last. So really the difference here is just in a more advanced system. Basically what this is doing exactly what you would have done with the old ATV system, and just allowing you to have more attacks before you actually finish loading the ATB bar. So that's why there are little segments on the ATB bar that you can attack. You can finish. You can execute your commands that you have already charged before the entire ATB bar is charged. So, I mean, that's really no different from just setting it on memory in the older games and just doing the same attack over and over because, holding down, instead of pressing X to win, you were just holding down the X button to win. So I would argue that there's very, very little difference there, other than, honestly, a more sophisticated system.
Weapons down. I'd hate for this to turn ugly.
Turn ugly?
He wants to kill us without a fight.
Time's up!
So this is our first introduction to what I like to call the general units. There are a few various... we're not going to take that tutorial. There are a few various human enemy types in this game. In this battle, we have two of them. We have the general melee attackers, which are the enforcers that I'm targeting now to get out of the battle as quickly as possible. And then we have in this case, we have a general unit, the Marauder, that has it's more powerful. It tends to have a wider variety of attacks. So, like this charging man and drive, almost all of the general units like this have an attack like that. And generally, the best way to take care of that attack is to do what we just did there: fill the the chain gauge and stagger it. Because once it's staggered, then every time you hit it, it interrupts almost without fail all of the general units. Once it's staggered, if you hit it, it interrupts whatever action it was about to take. So that's usually the general strategy, and in fact, that's the general strategy for a lot of enemies throughout the game. Is fill that charge,
soldier.
The chain gauge, and once it's staggered, it makes it easier to take them down.
What's your angle?
But that's not the case with all enemies.
What? Classified military info? Huh? What's the matter? You quit, didn't you? Did you think I'm gonna go out there and just tell everybody your secrets?
Getting a little bit of
My
motivation
angle.
here.
I'm after the Foul Sea. Still happy you tagged along.
Didn't have a choice.
So we don't know what Saz meant by that at this point. But when Lightning asks him, are you still glad you tagged along? He's like, I didn't have a choice. We don't know what he means at this point. But we do know a little bit more about what Lightning is after. We know that she's after the big pulse fal'Cie that is the cause of all of this havoc. Or at least the cause that what people think is the cause of all this havoc. Here we have like a major scene shift from what we were just witnessing with Lightning and Saz to like out and out fighting.
Migration. More like extermination.
Huge. You stay here.
So sorry. I didn't mean to.
These people need heroes.
Obviously, Snow has never heard the line, heroes are just people who get other people
Keep your
killed.
cool, and they will too. You got it?
Got it.
What's our motto?
The army's no match for Nora.
That a boy.
Alright, now we're playing as a new character. So this is Snow. He is going to be our hand-to-hand fighter. Like true hand-to-hand, he doesn't use weapons other than his fists. Let's save this again. Saving in this game, honestly, is relatively pointless. Just because... Oh, wait, I forgot to get the treasure sphere back here, didn't I? Oh, no, I didn't. I got it. Did that on autopilot. Sorry about that, guys. Saving in this game is kind of pointless, just because anytime you fail a battle, you're automatically given the option to retry. On the other hand, doing this video, I don't want to lose progress, because that would just be annoying.
This is crazy.
Then take a nap.
Really? Can I?
Sure. And when we're
Yeah, middle of a firefight, let's just take a nap.
No, that's even worse.
No dirt naps today. We're all in this together. Our enemy's the Cocoon Sanctum. The dreaded Psychom, no less.
What's to dread? Psychom's nothing but a whole bunch of bluster and bullying. They've got nothing on Nora.
Well, we are the heroes after all.
Let's prove it!
Yeah.
I think by definition, anybody who
Sanctum's
is
gonna
a
pay.
guerrilla fighter like these guys obviously are, can't call themselves heroes. If anything, they're anti-heroes.
Wrapped up and ready!
See, that was another case of I got into the ATV a little bit too soon. At this point, there's only one enemy left, so it doesn't really matter. But it was going to throw a hand grenade on one enemy that was almost dead because it might have caught the other one that was close enough. But by the time I was going to throw it, the guy had moved. So I would have thrown a hand grenade and possibly not even hit either of them. Now, in this case, they're all bunched up, and it was originally going to just have me attack the one guy, but then they all came together, and it made it more practical to use the hand grenade. So that's what I'm talking about when I say that it's not really Mash X to win. even in these simple battles. I mean, yeah, you would win, but I think it would be under appreciating the intricacies of the system
There
of
are
play.
soldiers everywhere.
And it's bad practice for future encounters where
Yo,
you
boss.
can't do that.
What's the plan? Charge in, guns blazing.
Hey, that's not a plan.
Real heroes don't need plans.
Real heroes don't need plans. Wow. Just who do these people think they are? Alright, so I was talking about the different types of human enemies in this game. This is another one that I've already taken out. The ranged attackers. So generally in combat, in normal, like, I won't say random encounters because there are no truly random encounters in this game. Everything is seen on the screen. But in the normal encounters in this game, non-boss encounters, the common ones are going to be those some combination of the melee and ranged attackers. And the priority in those fights is almost always going to be the ranged attackers. Often their attacks. See, and that one was a case where I shouldn't have done that. I should have just waited until I was ready to attack, because that hand grenade, I think, only hit the target, the initial target, which means it did automatically less damage than it would have for me to just attack it normally. But the normal encounters, you're going to want to take out the ranged human attackers first. Not only do they often cast buffs on the other party members or debuffs on your party, they also their ranged attacks will typically cause you, if you get hit by them, to be not staggered in the sense of the other enemies in the game get staggered and their defenses go super down, but like your attack might get interrupted. Until we get vigilance, which is a positive status effect that pretty much prevents that from happening for the most part. Then the ranged attackers typically are they're not the more immediate threat necessarily, but they're if you were playing Magic the Gathering, you would call it a board state that you would, in order to set up your board state, you need to get the board state that you want. You need to get rid of those as quickly as possible. They don't typically do as much damage as the melee fighters, but they have other effects in battle that tend to make it more difficult than necessary if you can get rid of them quickly, which you usually can, because the other attribute of those is that they typically have the lowest health and the lowest durability of all of the human forces.
Mom?
Don't worry.
Remember when I said that heroes are people who get other people killed?
Nice.
Yeah. Walking up to a bunch of, civilians and just telling them, yeah, just pick up guns and start fighting. Seems like a great plan.
Yeah. Moms are tough.
Right.
It's the last one, boss.
All right, last one. Somebody take it.
No.
Yeah.
There's his first sign of hesitation,
Push comes to
aiming a
shove.
machine gun to a kid.
First impression of snow? All talk.
And now we have an idea of who's narrating this.
All right, lay low and you'll be fine. We'll clear out the area.
which when I first played this game, I was a little curious about that, because at this point now we know that whoever that girl is, obviously she'll be a big part later. Actually, very soon here. But she's narrating this, and we already have kind of figured out that lightning is going to be one of the main focuses of the game. And in fact, later on it's pretty obvious that, maybe not so much in this story because it is about the team in this story, but by the time you get to 13-2, it's obvious that lightning is the focal point of the entire trilogy. So it kind of always made me curious as to why it is that this random red-haired chick is the one telling the story. And it becomes clearer later, a long ways later, chapter 11 sometime. We're still in chapter 1, and the chapters just get longer and longer. The first few chapters aren't very long, and then they get longer and longer, which makes sense. Again, I'm just going to save to make sure that... So, that's another curiosity point that I had when I was playing this game for the first time. And I think that's, again, evidence of, I did it again. I got the treasure sphere without even, thinking about it. No. But that was a point of curiosity to me, that they chose to have somebody other than the obvious leader do, well, at this point, either of the obvious leaders, because it's fairly obvious that Snow is going to be a big part of this game as well. But it's interesting. It's still interesting to me, and I think it's evidence that they planned out this storyline a lot more than the naysayers tend to give them credit for. They do have a massive amount of character development in this game, and I love it. All right. One nice thing about this section of the game, earlier, I only had to do it once so far, but the battle with the general guy that we fought, I had to throw a potion because this game is the first FF that, in fact, I guess it's really the only. This one and 13-2, and if you play Lightning Returns on easy mode. These are the only ones that, in the entire series, that once you go out of battle, you're automatically fully healed. Wait, was Tactics like that? I'll just say mainline installments then. Which is an interesting change. The reason they did that is because then the battles have a more long-lasting strategy to them than just. In fact, this is another reason that I don't like the press X to win thing, because it's not that way. In fact, it's specifically designed not to be that way. The reason that they made it so that you could automatically fully heal and after battles is because they wanted the feel of every encounter to be more desperate than it was in previous games. You might be confused as to why I say more desperate, because obviously you're fully healed going into it. It's not like you have to reserve your health or anything for the next encounter. But that makes it so that each encounter they can tweak the difficulty a little bit, so that other than items for the most part, and technique points, which we'll get into later, they can expect you to be able to go all out every fight. it leads to longer, quote-unquote, random battles. I'm going to keep calling them random battles to differentiate them from boss battles, but they're not really random battles. Anyway, it allows for longer and more unique random battles, even with like the common Final Fantasy types. I remember one of the first trailer videos that I saw for...
Stay down.
Actually, I'm going to stop talking for a minute and let you watch the scene, because this is where we see a small chink start to form in Snow's bravado.
I told you, didn't I? Moms are tough.
And then that happens. And all of those civilians that he just convinced to fight go falling off into basically a bottomless pit.
Get him home. Please.
Hold on!
And then you're like, why is this kid freaking out? I mean, the hair might kind of be a giveaway, but at this point, you don't really know. Other than the fact that it's obvious that, you know, she keeps saying moms are tough, so you kind of get an idea. But
Come on! We have to move!
Right.
so yeah, that just happened. I'm gonna save it here. But so now I don't remember what I was talking about before I stopped talking. But that's the first time that you really see Snow
Won't even live long enough to die on pulse.
come face to face with
That was the idea.
the way that he
What?
the way that he handles things.
Sanctum logic.
Like-
They conjured up the purge to eliminate a threat.
All of those civilians that he
Carried the
basically
danger all the way to Pulse.
almost bullied
Why
into
not just
convincing them
stamp
to
it out
fight.
here? Execution masquerading as exile. That's all the purge ever was.
Relocation to Pulse. How does the government get away with pulling crap like that? And you knew this was gonna happen?
The purge was SciComm. Private Sanctum troops, not the Guardian Corps.
SciComm, Guardian Corps. Soldiers are soldiers, aren't they?
It's an interesting distinction to take note of. It doesn't mean much now, but it will down the road.
Tell a soldier to kill an enemy, and you really think it's gonna matter what uniform he's wearing?
Might have mattered to that one. Couldn't shoot. Got himself shot instead.
How about you? Or to say shoot, You pull the trigger? Fine. Forget I asked.
Wait. What?
So this enemy type is one of my absolute least favorites in the game. It's a royal pain. This model isn't too bad, but of course it can't be with the options that we have available to us. But I do throw a potion. Oh, that's what I was talking about, wasn't it? I was talking about the way that they tweak the battle system in order to make all of the encounters more unique. I was talking about the fact that even the older enemy types, like I remember one of the first videos I saw before this game came out was a demo of how goblins were going to be played, and any fantasy fan, but especially any Final Fantasy fan knows when they hear the word goblin, they know basically what they're up against. And the video that I was watching at the time was a gameplay trailer of the party fighting a small group of goblins, or goblin type enemy. And it was, instead of having the usual, 3 attacks and you're done because they're such weak enemies, the battle lasted 6 minutes. And at the time, everybody's like, whoa, what's going on? And it was because of the fact that they changed the system so that, they expected you to go all out in every fight.
Yeah. Right in there.
Because it would allow them to do things to make the individual monster types and enemy types unique. Like even with the human enemies, you get different enemy formations that have different impacts in the way you focus on them, because you have to do things differently. Because you can't just approach it as it's the next enemy to kill. You have to look at the formation of each and every battle and say, generally there may be a strategy here, but I have to take into account that this type of unit typically does this. And the fact that they're expecting that every fight is going to be the potential to wipe out your party. There are very few fights until you're like massively developed that don't have the capacity to kill your party. And that's only possible because they could guarantee that you were going to be healed up and all your resources were going to be available for you each and every fight. So this whole press X to win thing, I would argue that if anything, this game is the first in the series that doesn't have that approach to the way that it was developed. It's almost never that simple. I remember, late game, or even fairly mid game in Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII. Not so much in Final Fantasy IX. They did make those fights a little bit more complicated. But Final Fantasy VII, Final Fantasy VIII, other than the storyline areas, if you did any side quests, other than the uber bosses, it was pretty much you're gonna either attack or you're gonna cast magic on it, and you're gonna do that repeatedly, and it's gonna go down. In this, it's not quite the same. In fact, I would argue it's completely different. yeah, you're pressing the X button all the time, but I'm sorry, what modern game are you not pressing a single button to kill things?
They didn't die. They couldn't have died.
Of course not.
Unless you're, specifically mapping different abilities, like Kingdom Hearts, you're doing the same thing. It's press X to win.
Hey, get a grip, man.
The fact that it has menus doesn't mean that it's not, that it's press X to win or that it's not press X to win. There's still strategy based on the way that it all happens.
Toss me that.
These cutscenes,
Catch.
again, the scale is just breathtaking. You have
What are you doing?
So what are you afraid of, huh? You're supposed to be the hero.
you have Saz and Lightning who watched
She's waiting there.
the explosion of the bridge. Couldn't see any of the details because they were so far away.
About time you picked her up.
And you see a little bit more of their storyline, and then it switches back to this cutscene, and you watch Snow and Godot see the little transport thing that Lightning and Saz were on explode after they jump off of it. And you can see how far away things are. Like, they can see what's going on, but they can't see why. And I don't think, there was never this scale of in any of the other Final Fantasies. With the exception of, sections of, like, Final Fantasy XV, where your party is split up. But I think the fact that people think that this game is so linear and that it's just a movie that you're occasionally playing in, yeah, there are a lot of cutscenes. But I don't think that's going to change anytime soon. In fact, I think that was inevitable with the way that technology has progressed. If you want a good story, you're not going to tell it all in little dialogue clips. It's never going to happen. Look at Horizon Zero Dawn. Great game, by the way. Honestly, I think it's going to be my game of the year for 2017. I don't see anything else coming out between now and then that's going to surpass it. I suppose maybe you could say that Final Fantasy XII, Zodiac Age, depends on how you want to look at that. I'm going to end the gameplay portion of this here, but I do want to talk a little bit more. Because I think we're onto something here. I think you look at Horizon Zero Dawn, and it has a lot of cutscenes in it. Mostly every time you go talk to somebody, there's a new cutscene. And I think this game might have overdone it a little bit, because they do a lot of just unnecessary story-related transitions. But at the same time, that's their methodology of building characters. And, once you've seen it the first time, there's no reason you can't skip it. And I don't think that necessarily detracts from the story any. Because, once you've played this through, you know where the story parts are. You know where critical things are going to happen. You're not losing anything by skipping the other cutscenes. So I take a certain amount of umbrage with the idea that the linearity of this game is a bad thing. I understand some people don't like it. I understand that, like, the stark contrast in the way that it was done from games even like Final Fantasy XII that was still fairly, it definitely wasn't open world. You had barriers to just about any place you wanted to go until you got to a certain point in the story. The bigger complaint with the linearity is more about the side quests. And again, I would just say that's a development choice. For this story, the way they did it makes sense. What are they going to do? Just throw in random stuff that you could have done in towns? Okay. So what? Like, if they did that, it would take away from the storyline. And the storyline to this story makes it fairly impossible for them to just be wandering around towns and, doing side quests that don't have anything to do with what they're actually doing there. It just doesn't make sense. So I think that's kind of a gimme, a gimme complaint from people who just didn't like the fact that they were changing things. I'd be happy to debate that issue. Anybody has a contrasting opinion, put it in the comments. I would love to debate that issue. I will be the first to admit if I see somebody have a point that I hadn't thought about or that changes my mind on something. One thing you will learn about me if you keep watching my videos, and I hope you do, I am a debater. I love to debate issues. I will occasionally say things that I will say just for the sake of making people think, making people look at things a different way. And that's honestly one of the biggest reasons I chose to do this game first. When I was first starting thinking about doing my YouTube channel, this was the game that pushed me over the edge to decide to do it. I started playing it again about a week ago because I wanted to play it again. Like I say, this is my go-to game. When I feel like I'm bored and there's nothing else, even though I have stacks and stacks of games, there's nothing else that I want to play, this is the game that I come back to because it recharges my batteries. Like, seeing a game like this, I won't say it's a masterpiece. You know what? I will say it's a masterpiece. It is a masterpiece of the style and I think it was the last great Square Enix game to go out on a limb and say, we're changing things. We're throwing things out. We're putting things up in the air. And then they delivered on it. And obviously how much they delivered is an opinion that varies person to person. In my case, I think they delivered perfectly on this game. Ignore the sequels for this discussion. Those, I'll talk about those when we get to them. But this game, I honestly think, is Square Enix's last great masterpiece in the FF series. 15 to me has impressed me more than I expected, but not as much as I would have liked. Final Fantasy Type 0, that may eventually fall into this category for me. I actually have not finished the game, but I'm loving it. Part of the problem is that I keep getting sidetracked by other things that come out that I wanted to play. So that might actually be a game that I do mostly blind on YouTube for the first time, just because I think the reactions to that game are going to be better if they're not canned. And by canned, I mean that, I'm having to reproduce them like I am with this series. So anyway, I'm going to stop talking because we've gone about an hour, a little over an hour. So the next feed will be up a week from now. Again, I don't know at this point what day of the week it's going to be. It's either going to be Monday, Wednesday, or Friday, with potential for bonus content of something or other on the weekends. At least until I find a job and know exactly what my schedule is going to be. By the time this is actually up, I will know what day it is, and I will put it in both the description of the video, and I'll insert it in a little clip or something, so that you know what day of the week it's going to be. So, till next time, if you like this video, please, by all means, hit the like button, share it with your friends. I am a brand new YouTuber. So the more views that people can see of my channel, I will be greatly indebted. And subscribe if you liked it, so that you get the notifications the next time I put one out, or when I do. Like I say, the weekend footage will almost always be bonus content of some sort that might not be directly related to any of the streams that I'm playing or any of the games that I'm going through. because that's kind of what I would like to do for the weekend content, is do stuff that is not necessarily directly related to what I'm doing, or like grinding stuff that I didn't want to do on camera, that if you really want to watch it, I may talk about interesting things while I'm doing it. I may do some top 10 videos. I may do some opinions of things that are going on in the industry. I like to keep myself apprised of rumors and that kind of thing that are going on in the industry, so that maybe I'll do some speculation on some of that, and do more footage of just me talking rather than, trying to listen to me ramble while I'm playing a video game. But for now, again, like, share, subscribe, whatever you want to do, and I'll see you next time.